Hey, hello! This is Professor Game, where we interview successful practitioners of games, gamification, and game thinking who bring us the best of their experiences to get ideas, insights, and inspiration to help us in the process of getting students to learn what we teach. And I'm Rob Alvarez. I work at IE Business School Publishing, where we create interactive and engaging learning materials. Wow, engagers! You'll never guess who we have today. Or maybe you do, because last week we anticipated who the incredible guest that we will have today. So today we do have Monica Cornetti, this amazing gamification guru. Monica, are you prepared to engage?
Yes, I guess. Let's make it so. Let's do it.
So Monica has been featured on the cover of Bloomberg Business Week, works with individuals and organizations who want to learn how to think differently to achieve uncommon results. A gamification speaker and designer, Monica was rated number 1 among the Gamification Gurus Power 100 by Rise in 2015 and 16. And in 2016, she was also recognized as a top 3 finalist in the Gamification Guru Award of the Year by the World Gamification Congress in Barcelona, Spain. Monica is also the founder and CEO of the Sententia Gamification Consortium and the author of the book Totally Awesome Training Activity Guide, Put Gamification to Work for You. Monica is hired for her skill as a gamification speaker and is considered at the top of her field in gamification design for corporate learning. And she's certainly an amazing designer in gamification. So Monica, let's dive right in. Is there anything I missed in that introduction? Anything we should know about you?
Just I'm based in Austin, Texas, which is probably the coolest city on the globe. But that might be up for debate by some others on who are listening that feel the same way about where they live. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's probably it. That's good. You did good. Thank you, Rob. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks to you for coming, for accepting to come to our podcast. So I would like to make you the first question, and it's what does a regular day with Monica Cornetti look like?
Chaos, I think. The reality is that I don't have any typical day because I might be in the middle of a design project. I might be in the middle of a delivery of a project. I could be in the office, but the reality is I lead what I like to think is what's a small but mighty global gamification strategy company organization, and we have designers across the globe, and we work in certifying people in how to apply our process. So every day looks different, but I'm always focused on strategy and direction, and what are we doing now that's working and what's not? What might we do different? I like to evaluate, what's working, what's not working, but pretty much my attention lies in finding ways to take things that are not fun and making them fun. So even in my personal life, I do a lot of, I call it lying to myself, like, um, you know, something I don't like, I turn it into a little game. Like, you only have to do this for 2 more minutes. If you don't want to do it after 2 minutes, you don't have to. And then after 2 minutes, well, that wasn't so bad. You want to go another 2 minutes? You can if you want to, but you don't have to. I mean, so a lot of what I implement into design, I do in my regular life too. So, um, I don't know if that really answered your question, but I don't have a regular day. It's different
That's
every single
fantastic.
day of the week. Every single day it's different. Yeah.
What that tells our audience is that definitely you are the go-to person if we want to know anything about gamification and learning, and that's definitely the case.
Oh, thank you.
So I know that right now you're probably at the top. You can climb even further as usual because we can always improve ourselves. But I want you to tell us a different story right now. I would like to know the story of what you've seen is the worst application of gamification that you've somehow participated in. It could be in your own design. Hopefully, it would be a very personal story, or not. It could be something that you participated collaterally and saw what were the flaws, what were the problems of that. What can you tell us about that, Monica?
Yeah, there's a couple that come to mind. One was an instructor-led training where it went a little too heavy on the competition side, and it was unbalanced, and it was a room full of of guys who just really took the competition, and I did too much what we call self-hugging in my design and had not anticipated how seriously they would take the competition. I didn't know my learners well enough when I went into it. I mean, that's the bottom line on that, that I had to do some quick adjustments um, to the my calculations, as I'm doing it to try and figure out how to put some stop gaps on and how to make it evened out. Because when there's that heavy, when they take it that seriously and somebody starts running away with, uh, it can really just, it takes all the fun out of it. Who wants to play a game you can't win, kind of thing. When when the
Exactly.
football team, like here in the States, the football team's down 98-3, everybody, the stands are empty. The winning team nor the losing team cares anymore. No one cares because it's so unbalanced. So that was early on, but just recently, I was at an event where I was asked to participate via an app that was used for different things throughout the conference. But part of it was engagement of the audience. And the app said that it was gamified, blah 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 blah. But so I participated in it from both a user and then as an evaluator of it. Going into it, I had my suspicions about how it would work, but I thought, let's just stay open-minded. This is an evaluative process, so let's not do prejudgments. Let's just see how it really works out. But what
Mhm.
happened was what I expected would happen, which is what's wrong with most event apps. Have you been to an event, Rob, where they use some kind of event app to engage
Yeah.
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 And what typically goes wrong is that we're rewarding the wrong behaviors.
Exactly.
And there's too much emphasis put on bad behavior, which is, just liking somebody's post or sharing somebody's post. And somebody's post was, "I'm here," and so you like, you know, it's not worthy of anything. It's not worthy of an additional recognition of any kind, and certainly not for somebody liking it and somebody not for sharing it. And especially in, uh, I like to think when we do rewards, I like to make them what I call inconsequential. I'd much rather have people competing over a dollar store trophy, a trophy that costs pennies, rather than um, uh, an iPad, something a new. Because once we start competing over something that could be worth some real dollars, then the whole structure changes again. And
Yeah,
that's exactly what
and
happened here. Yeah, go ahead.
we
Sorry.
listened to one of the talks in Gamification Europe recently, and they were talking about the relative value of rewards. If it's a personal event, even people can come from different parts of the world. The relative value of an iPad, even for some people, is not that valuable. But if you take it, for example, to somebody living in a country that's in pretty large amounts of poverty, maybe they can make out three, four, five, or six salaries out of a single iPad. So the
Hmm.
reward is worth something different for that person, and that person is going to do some things that you probably don't want him to do. He's going to try to trick the game, and if you don't have the right rules in place, and if it's all about getting that iPad, then they're going to do the wrong things, and they're not going to do what you're expecting them to.
Yeah, and that's what's, when we think about, well, gamification's been around forever. We've been doing sales competitions with leaderboards forever. What's so new about gamification? Well, yes, this is true. And what's when you look at what's been wrong with those sales competitions and those leaderboards forever, is that the same people get rewarded every year. The same three people are at the top every year. And the biggest problem for a company is that there's nothing that they're doing to encourage those three salespeople to reproduce themselves in the others. What if, of course, it could be something about their personality, but usually there's processes. There's things that they consistently do and don't do that help them to be at the top. And we should be rewarding the reproduction of those skill sets throughout our workforce for the betterment of the whole team rather than three individuals who a lot of times do things that, and I'm not saying this across the board, but I have experienced where a lot of the things they do and border on unethical to stay up there at the top.
Yeah, because
And
all you want to do when the
yes,
only objective is to stay on top of the board, you do everything you can to stay on top of the board, and boom, maybe you have a financial crisis happening.
yes,
Not to
right.
name any names, so
Yes, yeah, all right. So
that's a
yeah, and
badly designed game as well.
yeah, exactly. So that's where, and I was disappointed, and um, when in just the app had like a closed uh, discussion loop. So there was things you could do
Mm.
publicly on Twitter, but it also had just an internal closed loop, which is good too. That was fine. And so I just put a post out there. Consider this. What if we were rewarding the wrong behaviors, and what if we had done this? And so that got some good conversation going. Again, it wasn't. It was supposed to be an evaluative process, and I think we gained a lot from it. And these are the kind of the things that through experience and just through
Practice.
yeah, practice, that we're asking for trouble here. This, we can expect that probably something's going to go wrong. In a perfect world with all virtuous people, it, it
that
wouldn't it
that's not us humans.
yes, it's just not going to be, right? And we all can have that little bit of killer in us depending on what we're talking about. I've seen it come out in me. It's surprising.
Killer player type. Just if
Yes,
you were
yeah.
wondering, if
Oh,
you're new
sorry.
to this
Yes.
to this terminology, killer player type.
And it
We're not
doesn't
talking about real killers.
really. Thank you for clarifying that, Rob. Thank you. Yes. And it's surprising when it comes out. Sometimes you're like, I don't even really care about this. Why am I acting this way? Why am I acting like this is really that important? And yeah, so we'll see some of those bad behaviors come. So
I'd like to point out two things of both of your stories, which were very interesting. The first one from the first story that you mentioned it directly is know who you're going to cater your training or your educational program towards. That's very important. If it's a super broad audience, know that you'll have a super broad audience and that you'll maybe have to have different elements for different types of people. You can categorize them through the player types, but you can also categorize them through different means. It could be senior executives. It could be very young people who are just exiting university. It could be by different careers, because maybe some of them are very technical, some of them are more human oriented. I mean, there's many ways you can categorize the people that your learners, but it's always important to make a little bit of that research if you've never done it before with them, to understand a bit more how they will work, what ticks them. And if they're super ultra competitive, you have to be aware that that's going to be an element around there. And on your second story, Monica, I would like to highlight as well the importance of balancing out the rewards. If you're going to give away rewards, I'm not the one who says you can do this and you cannot do this other rewards, but always think about how that's going to modify their behaviors. Because again, as we were speaking, if you're going to give an iPad, that can mean a lot of things for many people. Or if you're going to put them at the top of the leaderboard in the organization, that could mean, maybe a promotion, maybe their careers, take off. So whatever the reward is that you're giving, you have to be conscious of the consequences that it's going to have. At least think them through. And you can commit mistakes. That's part of the learning process. That's part of the fails, first attempt in learning. But those are the things that you have to think about and be conscious and be very aware that you might have to iterate on. Because maybe you have something that's ongoing and maybe you have to make some modifications and say, well, the rules have changed a bit. We have realized these things are happening, and to keep it fair, we want to change the rules a bit and allow these other types of things as well. So always keep that in mind. That's my message for the engagers. Is there anything else you want to point out from that experience, Monica?
yeah, I think everything you said is so important. And when we're thinking about changing the rules, of course, iteration is part of design. And when we need to change it, we should change it. And the other thing I've learned from being a participant in something like that is that if ever you're going to change the rules, you got to let people know before you do it, not after. Because
Exactly.
if you change the rules, it's like playing games with your 7-year-old niece, or it's like they keep changing the rules as you go and you're like,
For
wait a
their
minute,
benefits,
wait, yeah, wait, what? Wait, what? Yeah. So people, because that whole, I'm real big on that. the Adams equity theory about, people, that sense of fairness is so strong in us. And as soon as we think that something is unfair, we're
Oof,
out.
everything
Yeah.
changes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything changes.
So as long as, we have to understand it, we may not particularly like it, but we see, yeah, well, that's fair. Okay. That's fair. We can make that work. So that has to be a big part of it. Yeah, that's right. That's good. Thank you, Rob.
Fantastic. Thanks to you. Great stories. Now I want to shift quite a bit,
Okay.
and I would like to ask you, what is the biggest challenge that you faced and solved using gamification, especially in the learning arena? So take us there. Take us to that story.
I think it's really like how I even got started. I honestly kind of tripped and fell into the whole training arena. I was an administrator at a large not-for-profit, had implemented our whole strategic planning system, written it, implemented it for 10 years. And when I resigned from that position, I got invited to speak at an event on developing strategic plans. And so that was the topic. And I was like, well, of course I can do this. No, yeah, right. Okay. So I went, I was really excited. And unfortunately, like about 20 minutes into that presentation, I realized that the audience really wasn't listening that much anymore.
Ouch.
And yeah, my first thought was, what's wrong with these people, right? So what's wrong with these people? Because I had my, the 5 things to avoid in strategic planning, the 7-step, the readiness checklist. Is your team ready for strategic planning? The 12-step implementation process. I mean, I had all this. I was the SME, but I was disconnecting. And I think really like the real ouch on that one, Rob, was the guy. There was one guy in the very back of the room at the back row. He was like leaning back in his chair, looking up at the ceiling. And I could see he had his finger up and he was counting the ceiling tiles. And when I saw that, I thought, oh my God, he's calculating the square footage of this room. And that's more interesting than what I'm talking about. And how can that be? How can that possibly be? And so when I was driving home from that event, like I was kind of like crushed, I was relieved, but I thought, I had fun. Unfortunately, I think I was the only one in the room that had fun because I had never really done anything like that before. I'd never been that front of the room person. As the administrator, my goal was that you never had to get to me. If you got to me, something was way wrong. So that front of the room, and I enjoyed it. But I stopped at our bookstore. We had a little local bookstore on my way home that afternoon, and I went and I bought a book by a guy named Mel Silberman. It was about designing interactive learning experiences. This is brand new territory for me. I am just fascinated by every single thing that I read in that book. But the real key was at the exact same time that was happening. I have 3 boys and they were teens at the time, and they would spend hours in our rec room playing games with their friends. I mean, hours. And a lot of you know what I'm talking about. And you
I
had
still do.
you still do. And you have moms or spouses or somebody like me who would say, "Come on, you've been down here for hours. We got," and they, I couldn't get them to study for a Spanish test for 20 minutes, but they could play games for 5 hours. And I'd say, come on, you guys got to go home to their friends. And so, but what I just started like, well, what is it? How can this be so fascinating for them? And so I would just observe and I would listen and I would watch. And I just thought, what can I pull from what I'm seeing here and start moving into my training. And so I had moved into, and I was designing training for clients by this time that both I was delivering to much greater success than the original one, and that they were delivering kind of out of the box programs. But I was weaving this game thinking into it, and I had no idea that it was actually like a thing that other people were doing. I was on a call with a client in 2012, and I had worked with her in the past, and she said to me, these were her words. She said, I want you to design a creative thinking program for our managers. I know you do that gamification thing, and I think that's the direction we should go. So this is 2012. And I'm replying to her. I said, oh, Susan, I think that's a great idea. The creative thinking, it's a great way to go, blah, 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 blah. So let me put some ideas together and I'll get back with you. I'll call you tomorrow. But as I'm saying those words to her, I am sitting at my computer screen Googling gamification. I'm like, gamify what? I had no idea what she was talking about. I had not heard the term. I didn't know, it was on Google. It was a Google trend for 2 years already. People had been delivering sessions at South by Southwest for 2 years already on it. And I didn't even know what it was. And as I'm looking at it, I thought, oh my gosh, this is what I do. And there's a whole community that does it. And so it went from that to me getting to know the community, to me forming this global organization that trains in this. We have a trademarked and proven process on adding gamification into learning programs. So if you think about, to me, that's like my biggest challenge was I thought this would be a fun thing to do, to get into, to deliver on content that I was a subject matter expert. Quite honestly, I was really, really bad at it. And I I learned through observation and trial and error and doing and failing and picking myself up and trying it again, of really how to effectively apply gamification in the learning field so that it can make learning engaging and fun, and it gives people hooks to remember it, that they can retrieve it later, that they can actually apply it in real life, that it'll move the levers to impact bottom line of an organization. Everything that people generally think training is not, gamification can make it so that it really does impact an organization in a
Yeah.
positive way. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I can completely relate to your story, Monica. That's an amazing story, and I like to take out from your story as well for the engagers to see how the impact of all these things, how a journey can take somebody from not even realizing that they were doing gamification into turning into Monica Cornetti nowadays. That is one of the gurus in the worldwide scene. I mean, a very recognized person in the world of gamification came out 2 years, maybe more, because there were probably people doing it before that they were doing gamification. And here came Monica, who was doing all these processes and didn't know about it. And now she's one of the top gurus in the world who knows about gamification and who uses them in learning and development. So my invitation is to all of you that there's many things that we can do. There's many things we can learn from, and practice is what the only thing that can make perfect. There's nobody who's already there, and the thing is to actually start and get going. So is there anything you'd like to add to this, Monica?
Yeah, that's exactly, Rob. To me, I like to remind people, because when you're getting into the early stages of gamification design, there are a lot of moving parts, and you can have that, if you're familiar with Csikszentmihalyi's concept of flow, you're up there in that top
Yeah,
left quadrant pretty. You're frustrated, you're beyond your skill level. I don't know how to do this, but everything that you are a master at now, there was a time when you had no idea how to do it. And
exactly.
now people come to you to learn something. And so for everyone who's interested in gamification, and you're thinking, well, I don't, but think about what you are a master at right now, that you, at some time, you had no idea what you were doing. And now people
That's
turn
it.
to you. So,
That's it.
yeah.
I wanted to ask you, Monica, about, I know you have a very thorough process for creating learning and in gamification. You even have a certification process around that. So I wanted, even if it's not at the deepest level, to give us an introduction to what's the process that you follow for creating gamification in learning. And even again, if it's not going to the deep level, give us the top level things and where we can know more about your process.
Okay. So we do have a trademark proven process that we follow, like you said, Rob, that we really take you through we call them 5 levels. And unlike a good game that someone's designed, or a good learning program that someone's designed, unfortunately, for gamification design, I think that you have to start with something that's really difficult. And in good learning and good games, we would never throw the toughest challenge out there at the very first level. That you would get somebody in, give them quick wins, make them feel good, give them accomplishment, take them to the next level. But in gamification design, it does start with the toughest, and that is knowing why you're even adding gamification. What are the business objectives that you're going to impact? What don't you have now that you need? And how is gamification going to help you achieve that? And I always take it back. It's two things. It's one of two things. If we're designing a learning program, it either has to increase revenue or decrease costs, or we're wasting our time. There is no reason to have a learning program that does not increase revenue or decrease costs in an organization. And now in adult education, it could be because, well, we need to learn this stuff. We don't know this, and I need to learn this. I need to learn more about this particular topic. In a business, yes, we may need to learn something more about a particular topic, but it better be to increase revenue or decrease costs, or we're wasting our time, which has been one of the fundamental challenges of learning for years, is we can't tie it back to a business objective. From there, we go on to who's our players. We teach different ways to evaluate that. If it's at its simplest form, it might be some interviews, some behavior interviews. We use something called the Reese profile in our design projects to identify 16 key motivators that individuals have. From there, we go to a theme or a narrative. We do not develop programs without at least a theme. And it could be just showing you a map and taking you through that map, so that and tying everything back to progress and exploration, which are key elements of learning. For learning programs, we specifically focus on how the learning will happen. I like to reference one of my heroes, Bob Pike, who's one of those guys that I bought his books way early when I was so bad at delivery. And in one of Bob Pike's books, his book is called Master Trainer. On one page, he has 56 different ways you can deliver information other than lecture. So on one page of one man's book, he's identified 56 ways. There's lots of things we can do other than lecture to deliver information. And actually, we don't get to the gamification, the mechanics, the fun. We don't even get to fun till level 4 of our, and it's like such a ripoff, right? What?
Yeah.
We came here to learn gamification, and I got to wait till level 4. But you know that unless we do all the fundamentals first, fundamentals are the building blocks of fun. Nothing will be fun, because we just start slapping mechanics on, thinking that this is what gamification is, and it's about psychology more than the mechanics. And so then at the very last level, it's all about aesthetics, emotions, how it all ties together, doing the very best we can with the look and feel, with the resources that we have, and just making sure everything ties back to the previous levels. So it is, and we go in depth. We do have 3 levels all the way up to a gamification master, where you actually implement. Levels 1 and 2, you're still not implementing. You're still in design. 3 is implementation. But everything points back to our initial early map that takes you through. We have 30 stepping stones on a map that you walk through. And you have to do each stepping stone. Some we like more than others. But it's part of successful design.
That's fantastic, Monica. I'm guessing that we can find more information about that process at sententiagames.com. Am I right?
Yes, sir. Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Monica, I want to take you to the second side of the interview here. Before, in the first part, we were talking about more of the stories. Here, I'm going to make a big challenge, because I know both of us like to talk about this topic.
What are you saying? What are you saying, Rob?
That we're super passionate about this topic.
All right.
But here I'm going to make a big challenge. Yes. And I'm going to ask you to try and make these answers a lot more concise. That's the most difficult part, at least for me. So the first one is to name what you would call a best practice in gamification.
Starting with your objectives and your players, knowing what those are before you do anything else.
If you don't know that, you can start. Makes a lot of sense. The next one, Monica, is what's your favorite game?
Anything I'm playing with my grandbabies. I got a 3 and a 1-year-old, and we're making up games all the time. So
Peekaboo can be one of the games, right?
We do, yeah. They're a little bit more physical now than that, yeah. So it's like, grabbing a laundry basket and a tennis ball, and how many can you get in one bounce? Those kind of just wherever we are. making games, having fun, that kind of
That's
thing.
it.
Yeah.
That's great. The next question is, Monica, who would you like to listen to interview in Professor Game?
I'd like to hear Bernardo Latif interviewed. Have you interviewed him? He,
No, but I promised him an interview after we re-met at Gamification Europe, so it's coming.
yeah, he just won the award for best gamification platform, Blue Rabbit, which we use, and I think that I'd love to hear about his experience as a teacher using that and what he's doing with his kids there.
Absolutely, big shout out, Bernardo Licaif from Mexico.
Right.
Monica, I would like to know, aside, of course, from your book, which book would you recommend to our listeners?
Oh, one book?
Yeah,
Um, okay, well, I think the one that's most fascinating for me right now because of net neutrality is Ready Player One.
that's fantastic. And repeat for the audience, I'm not sure if we said it before, what's the exact name of your book?
My book is Totally Awesome Training. It's a activity guide on put gamification to work for you. Totally Awesome Training. Yeah.
So there you go, two awesome books that you can read. The next question is, Monica, is very unconventional, and I would like to know, what is your superpower in gamification?
I guess it's my psychology background, just understanding that people don't do what you think they'll always do, and understanding that that's such a huge part of successful gamification is we call it like behavioral economics or psychology, but just that motivating people and
That's
understanding what
fantastic.
yeah.
That's super, super useful. I always remember that it's not just about making something fun, it's about what's the behaviors you want to motivate. And that comes, as Monica says, from psychology and behavioral economics. Monica, we're reaching the end of our interview today. It's been a blast for us. And I would like to ask from you to give us a final piece of advice for the engagers who have probably never used the gamification before. What would you tell them? Where would you ask them to start?
Well, first off, start for one thing. Don't let paralysis analysis or whatever analysis paralysis keep you from starting. I think the most important thing is to start small and understand that iteration is part of design. It's okay if it didn't work. What didn't work, and fix it. Try it again. It will work. You just have to get started. Don't let fear keep you from starting it.
That's a fantastic advice, because if we don't get started, we'll never finish. Isn't that
Right.
right?
And it won't be perfect. I can tell you right now. Don't expect it to be because it won't be. And it's okay that it's not. You'll learn. We'll get it. We'll get there.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Monica. I would like to know where our engagers can connect with you, and then we'll say game over.
Oh, thank you. So I'm on Twitter. It's just Monica Cornetti. I have my personal website because I still do quite a bit of speaking at events. So it's monicacornetti.com. And then also our Sententia site for gamification strategy is sententiagames.com.
That's fantastic, Monica. Is there anything else that we haven't asked you that you still want to share with the audience before we say game over?
Just the last thing is I was thinking about is that, it's not scientific, but it is mostly the psychology that makes gamification successful. And so always as we're designing, when we talk about knowing our players, there is a syndrome that happens, what we call self-hugging, that we design for ourselves instead of for our users. And that's why it's so important to know who our players or our users are, because we think it's fun does not mean our players will think it's fun. So that's why it's so important to make sure we know who they are. And I don't think I really addressed that enough of why that strategy is so important.
Fundamental. Know who you're talking to. I mean, I'm sure this applies to almost any field you can think of. If you're going to be a speaker and you address the wrong audience, you'll probably not get the best results. If you're a professor or a teacher, if you address people in the wrong place, you'll probably not end up in the place you wanted to be in the first place. And of course, if you're designing gamification, which involves the psychology of people, you have to know the people you're designing for, and understand a bit of their psychology, what drives them, what motivates them, and design for them. I mean, it can be better advice. Thank you very much, Monica.
Oh, you're welcome, Rob. Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it. Ton of fun. Thanks so much.
We had a lot of fun as well, and thank you for participating in Professor Game, and we'll catch you on the flip side. Game over.
Hey, engagers! Thank you for listening to Professor Game Podcast. If you want more interviews with incredible guests like Monica Cornetti and lots of awesomeness from Professor Game, then go to professorgame.com/subscribe and get started into our email list. That way, you can be in contact and you will be the first to know of any opportunities that Professor Game might have for you. And before you go into your next mission, would you like to know how Eric Van Mechelen got his game started into doing his own book? Well then listen to the next episode of Professor Game. See you there!